I plan to live to at least 95. One of the reasons is because I've got great genes.
It would be impossible to study longevity without at least understanding its relationship to genetics. For years, the medical community believed that our genetic code played the most fundamental role in determining how long we live. We now know that although genetics is an important factor, it is no longer the most important.
Genetic components of aging. We read reports of people in their hundreds. Very frequently associated with those individuals is the fact that their parents died at a very old age, and they have siblings that are living to very old ages. Now, is this due to the fact that they're eating well, or they're not smoking, or they're in an environment where one doesn't have toxins in the environment? Or is it related to the fact that their genetic composition is such that they are protecting themselves without external forces from things that may impact on others? Conversely, individuals who get ill at a very early age may have what might be referred to as the wrong genetic background. We know very little about this.
We now know that genes play a role in how long an individual can potentially live. So for the amount of variation that we see in lifespan for individuals that are older than 80 years old, studies with human twins done in Denmark recently shows that the amount of all the variation, about 20 to 30% of it is genetic. That means that 70% of the variation in lifespan, that is the difference between how long you might live versus me, is due to non-genetic factors. This is encouraging because that means that there's a lot of things that can be potentially changed or manipulated throughout your lifespan. This is not stuff that you do necessarily near the end of your life, but throughout your lifespan that might put you at the high end of that range versus the low end.
There are diseases that tend to run in families at times, and those are important ones to pay attention to. But in terms of simple life expectancy and how long you can be expected to live, the issues of lifestyle, preventable illnesses, and being active, both physically and mentally, are much more important than the genetic factors involved in how people's parents or grandparents might have lived and died.
The combination of these factors has led to significant changes in the demographics of our aging population.
January 1, 1994, the Census Bureau reported that the fastest growing segment of the United States population were centenarians, those over 100.
You have to be a little bit careful when you talk about centenarians and use the commonly available data. We've found in the United States, for example, that if you take a census and you ask, you get an age distribution, you may have 35,000 people say they're age 100 or over. There's good reason to be skeptical of many of those responses because for some reason people do tend to overstate their age.
I've spoken to thousands of centenarians, and beyond speaking to them, I've known so many of them very well and do know so many very well. And what I've noticed is that there are centenarians everywhere. And centenarians come from all walks of life. Centenarians are living all over the country.
I think if you're an older person alive today, you probably want to be an American, unless you're poor or unless you don't have health insurance, in which case Western Europe is probably a better place to be.
Japan, for example, has the longest life expectancy of any country in the world. The average now is over 80 years. Women are up somewhere in the vicinity of 83, 84 on average, and a Japanese male baby born today can expect to live about 77 years.
The second longest life people in the world are the Swiss. Life expectancy 78. And then we have any number of countries in the 77 club. That would include Greece, Norway, Austria. And then the United States is down just over 76. So all of those are very small differences. And so it suggests that there is no people or country that has some kind of miraculous result. These are the best results probably ever achieved in human history. and only about 75 nations have ever even achieved a 75-year life expectancy. So we can't go to some remote corner of Tibet and find a country where everybody, because they had a yogurt diet, lived to 100. Those people don't exist. In fact, the only studies that were done in these remote areas, it turned out the people, real problem they had was they really couldn't remember how old they were.
We do, interestingly, see differences between people living in the towns and living in the countryside. There are so many differences there that it's hard to be absolutely sure that it is this silver bullet that makes the difference.
Although advances in modern technology and industry have increased our longevity, it has also created new threats.
We see big geographic differences. We have a stroke belt. We're sitting in it in Louisiana. The stroke belt is in the southeastern states. It's the same place where we have an end-stage renal disease belt, again a vascular disorder. Try to explain why is that. What is it that makes this part of the country less healthy than, say, living in Utah or Colorado?
Environmental impacts have a serious consequence on longevity. One of the biggest problems right now are the pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides that are used in agriculture and also on homes and gardens, lawn and gardens around the United States. These organochlorine type molecules get into the food and water supply and have a tremendously damaging impact on our immune systems, and it's a major problem.